So I have a challenge today. Actually, I have two challenges. One is to talk about shopper behavior, which everybody's eager to know. Then talk about what new they're doing in the retail space, what channels they're going, how are they planning to save cost, and finally give some advices for the brands who are here to grow. But I have only 15 minutes to do that. The second challenge is to keep you all awake and entertained before the lunch is served. So let me see how I do here. Let me start by telling a little bit about how we collect the shopper data. So at Kantar World Panel, what we do is we have talked about out-of-home consumption, out-of-home usage of purchases of FMCG products, including foods and beverages. What we do here, we maintain a huge set, 3,000 households of shoppers in our portfolio who give us data about their purchases every month. And we collect their shopper behavior and do the trend analysis. We dig into the big data and we do our analytics. And we find out that these three things are critical for you all to know. Number one, how are shopper trends evolving over time? And there has been going on a lot of events in the last few years. Think about the COVID time, it passed. Then there was Middle East crisis, the Russia-Ukraine crisis. A lot of things that happened that had supply crisis, that had inflationary pressures that brought in. And because of all those things, shoppers have evolved constantly, and they will keep on evolving constantly. So what are those key behavioral changes that they're going through? That's number one. Number two, UAE shoppers, how are they changing their retail behavior? Because we have seen when prices go up, not necessarily everybody's go for paying the extra money for the products. What they do is they find out interesting ways of reducing that wallet pressure by managing their purchase cost. How do they do that? And in doing so, they are going to, for example, interesting new arenas such as the discounters that are emerging in UAE or the e-commerce platform where they find new options. Number three, and for brands, what does it all mean? So we'll start with the evolving trends. A very tiny, talk about the context setting here. So UAE economy, if you look on the left-hand side, the per capita income is growing. It is growing significantly and over time. We look at the inflationary trend. This is the government numbers, and we see that it went up, then stayed there, coming back, and it's plateaued. It's not going up. So it's a manageable situation there. On the far end, what we see is called PMI, or Purchasing Managers Index, which essentially tells us if the number you're looking at is above 50, which means the non-oil sector is growing. So economy is booming, inflation is stable right now, so it's a fantastic space for all the food and beverages sectors to operate in. But, however, not to mention, there is a cost of living increase in some areas, including the housing sector, which will definitely pinch your shoppers and customers. So whenever you're marketing to these people, you have to be aware of that. In that context, let's pull up a longitudinal data set and let's look at how the in-house volume is moving. So what I'm showing here is overall FMCG, but also food, beverages, and dairy consumption volume. How are they moving? Overall, the volume is flat, even though if you look at the average prices has increased for FMCG. And in beverages particularly, interestingly, what happened is, even though prices have increased, there has less impact. And in dairy, in fact, dairy is one segment that is enjoying significant growth. So with that in mind, if you look at the longitudinal trends, what we see, a lot of data here. Let me explain a little bit. What we are looking at on the green line is the amount of purchase people made. The blue line is the spend that they make, and the red line is the prices. If you see a lot of waves, you'll see the highest peaks are generally Ramadan. But interestingly, the recent two Ramadans, what we see is that post-Ramadan, after 2 months of Ramadan, there is another peak. Shoppers are again going up and buying more amount. And if you look at this thing, which obviously says that this is a promising event for the FMCG industry, which was not the case previously, by the way. So this is a new trend. And in the recent months, if you look at the 98, 99, 97, what does it tell us is that shoppers are buying products at a slightly cheaper prices. Does this mean the prices are falling? Not necessarily. They are going down, definitely. But what they're doing ultimately is finding ways to buy, find deals, or using means, using channels that give them, more value products, and they are buying at a lesser price. So this is interesting. And other things that they're doing is, if you look at the columns, what they're meaning is that all these behavioral parameters, for example, the spend they make, the volume they purchase, or the pack sizes per trip that they buy, looking at this one interesting thing that we see, now shoppers are trying to rationalize by buying smaller packs. But in food, for example, they are buying more number of packs than they used to buy. What does it mean for us? It means, obviously, bundling opportunity, but also it means that shoppers keep on doing their rationalization behavior all the way. The inflationary pressure has gone down a little bit, but people are conscious and they're doing short-term planning on how they should buy. And that is why, for all the brands present here, it's all the more critical to understand in your own category how shoppers are behaving. That was number one. Chapter 2 will be focusing on the new emerging channels. For example, the discounters channel. What is a discounter? Discounters are generally very prominent in Europe and North America, where you'll see a channel, wherever they are, they will claim the best, cheapest prices every day of the week. And that trend was not in UAE since the advent of COVID times. Then a lot of channels came in, and it became just like the global trend. If you look at the global trend, discounters are one channel that's the fastest growing in the world, even above the e-commerce growth that we see. Globally, in 2023, we have seen 14% growth in the discounter sector, and that is being mirrored in UAE also. If you look at these numbers, this is UAE number, 53% of UAE households have made purchases from the discounters in the last 1 year. So which is a big number, especially if you look at the 87 is the number, which tells us how many, when you say discounter, what is the amount or the extent of discount that they're getting. At an overall level, they're getting 87. So if the normal price is 100, if I go to a discounter, I can buy the same category, may not be the same brand, at 87 dirhams. So that is the kind of benefit that you're getting. And as a result, the penetration means household that buy product from discounters continues to go up. Just 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, it was around 40% household. Now it's more than 50% household go and purchase products from discounters. And for you brands also, it means that you have to go and invest with the channel and make partnership with this channel, because this is emerging. Still, the value contribution is not too much. If I spend 4% on 100 dirhams in FMCG, only 4 dirham I'm spending in discounters, but this is sharply growing. So that's one thing. And who are the people that are going to the discounters? We are talking about people looking for value. They want to buy products at a cheaper price. Does it mean that only one segment of the people are going there? Not necessarily. If you look at the socioeconomic classes, even socioeconomic class A and B are going to discounters. Even the more wealthier segments are going to discounters. Even young and old, both generations going to discounters, which means this is a trend that's here to stay. It's going to be in the future, and it's likely to grow. All right, so that was discounters. And e-commerce, very interestingly, e-commerce is a space we all know that it's growing. In UAE, it's important for all the brands. I checked last year that among the top 600 brands, 91% of the brands are selling their product online already. So if you look at the global perspective, this is what it tells you is the largest, e-commerce countries in the world. If you look at it, UAE is almost at the top. I mean, on the top tier countries. It's 43% of his household, does online shopping recently. So this is this is definitely an important number to understand. Even before us, so we are above Ireland, we are above Sweden. So a lot of countries, we have really jumped through. And obviously it's a demand and supply issue as well, because the brands, the marketers that you are providing, an ecosystem for acquiring this service. They are indeed doing this. if you, this is now, let's look at a little bit on UAE market. If you look at that, almost half of the UAE market does online shopping or e-commerce. And their spend on e-commerce have risen from 5.5% to 7.1% in just 2 years. So if I spend 100 dirhams in shopping, 7% of it I'm shopping online. And it's significant, just 50% growth in 2 years. It's really, really big numbers. Not only that, if you look at the depth of usage, for example, the frequency, it used to be if in June 2020, if the frequency was 100 times, now it's 136 times. So which is significant growth, and also the depth, volume per trip, which means if I go, think about why is e-commerce so lucrative. Number one, we already discussed some time ago by another speaker, convenience is the key. So if I open my mobile phone, I can do my shoe shopping and FMCG shopping. I can buy milk and anything I want just with the convenience. But plus also, I don't have to carry that and take it home. It will come to me. So with that in mind, the shopper behavior change that we see only closely resonates with what they're doing, what they want, the convenience, and what they do is really matching. And all our brands have to be mindful of that. And one key difference between the brick and mortar shopping and online shopping is that online shopping is all about data. Brick and mortar shop, somebody comes to your door, they buy something and leave, but here they give you their data. And data analytics, using the information that you have, is critical for brand growth, critical to stay one step ahead. So that's all about e-commerce. Number 3, so what does it all mean to you, brands? All it means, from Kantar, where I come from, we say that for any brand to grow, you have to be meaningfully different. Number 1, to more people. What does it mean, meaningfully different? Many of us know. Think about a toothpaste brand. If they want to be different, and all they do is they come up with a variant that is glow in the dark. So that's their specialty. They talk about, we are different, but you'll never see that glow in UAE probably because you're always in light, not in dark. So it doesn't mean anything. So it's not meaningful for differentiation for the consumers. So for a brand to grow, it has to be meaningfully different to a lot of people. And to do that, you have to be talking about your brand to more people. You have to be more present and also find new spaces or need states, need groups where you can push your product. So these are the 3 things. Let's talk about a little bit about being more present. In UAE, we do a study every year, UAE, Saudi, in many countries in the world where we are there, which are the best brands, which is the largest brand in terms of connecting with shoppers. The number of times they are bought. And we see that every year, almost 1 billion brand choices are made in UAE, 1 billion, and that has grown significantly, more than 18% versus last year. So basically, the FMCG choices are growing. Having said that, if you look at the largest brands, they're all familiar brands from last year. But interesting fact is that these are all or mostly local or regional brands. We have Al Rawabi, Al Ain Farms, Al Marai Marmoom, and Luzine. So these are big brands, individual brands. For example, Al Rawabi connecting with 48 million times with their shoppers. So it's a huge number. So this is obviously a high benchmark, but wherever space you are, you can see that this can happen in UAE. So this is significant. Why I'm saying this is because this sets up my conversation for the next point, which is that not all brands will grow. Okay, despite whatever they do, not all brands. If you look at last year, 54% of the brands in UAE, they increased their interaction with shoppers, or 47% of the brands grew their sales. All right? So, which is a positive sign, obviously. More brands actually grew. I remember the 2020 numbers, which was disappointing. 2021 numbers, those are disappointing. So this is a very good scenario where we see a lot more brands are growing than those brands are shrinking. But the most important way to grow is investing in your brand and get new shoppers. So basically, when we say penetration, it means that how many households am I present? If I'm present in 10% household, I have to invest to be present in 15%, 20%, 25%. That's the number one thing to do. We do a lot of things. And obviously, innovation is the path to that, but innovation in itself is nothing unless you can get shoppers who will stay with you. So number one thing is those brands who have grown, large, medium, or small, 68% of the brand grew when they had acquired new customers. Remember that from our Kantar studies, we always see that even for the largest brands, around 50% of your shoppers will not buy you next year. It's a big thing, right? Think about a brand like giants like Pepsi and Coke. 45 to 50% of their shoppers will not buy them next year. It's incomprehensible to many of us, but that's the truth. That's what shopper behavior tells us. So what you have to do is keep on investing on the brand. Don't sit passively. The scenario is difficult. There is COVID. There is this. There is change in AI, etc. So we cannot invest. That's not the way to grow, because others will invest and others will surpass you. That's number one. Number two, for food industry specifically, we do a study where we see that health trends, we all know this, but health trends is very, very critical for brand growth. Especially if you look at the UAE numbers versus global numbers, the so-called health actives who significantly spend their time, energy, money for good food, good health, healthy lifestyles, that percentage is much higher, much larger in UAE. So if that is the case, then your brand, especially if it's a food which is consumable, people take it in, they have to be really healthy. Because in UAE, otherwise, you're going to fall short because the health actives are so large. But this is just a superficial level. You have to go deeper because everybody can claim, I am healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy. What does health mean to your shoppers? That's something you have to understand. So in our study, we see that you have to, for different category users, when they consume a product, they have a specific mindset on health and wellness. So if I'm buying bread, I have a mentality. If I am buying honey, I have a different mentality. And these are very different. When I'm thinking about honey, maybe I'm thinking about physical well-being. When I'm talking about another product, I'm thinking about mental well-being. So do you know what health means to your shoppers? You have to know that. You have to know what percentage of households of your shoppers are health conscious and looking for health. That will have deep impact on how you do your messaging, how you do innovation. If your innovation is against the health trend, somehow people understand, then probably it will not grow. So think about the overcome health factors. So there are some negative factors people want to avoid in their life from a health perspective. What are these? You have to know, and how your brand, your product is linked with that. Somehow, if your brand is linked with something they want to avoid, doesn't matter how healthy you claim, it's not going to work. So you have to really know your shoppers, who they are, what are they looking for, what are they trying to avoid, and how we can link with them. So this is critical, because just saying healthy won't work. Somebody was saying we live in a WhatsApp university era where constantly we are barraged with a lot of information. So people are aware about details of health. So if you look at one example, is that if you think about milk, so which following do you believe to be beneficial for well-being? If you ask globally, 70% of people say milk, associate milk with healthness. In UAE, it's significantly higher. It's 82% of people attach health and wellness with milk. If you think about probiotics are gut-friendly, it is fine. Meat is significantly considered to be healthy than the global average. So it is very different from other countries. If you come from another country, you have a specific perception about health, and this is how I should talk about health. Not necessarily it's going to match with UAE. Okay, so it's very different. So this is what I wanted to highlight, that health is a fantastic leeway of growth and innovation, but you have to really know what health means to your shoppers. So one example, this is my last slide, or semi-final slide. That one interesting example, so we know a lot of giant brands who are all present here have experienced growth, fantastic way. But even the brand like Pinar, which is growing, can achieve through exactly these routes. What they did is they refreshed their products. They brought in, from our data we saw that a health angle, and they increased their penetration. So they took care that I have to reach more households. How can we do that? What pack sizes should we sell? Which retail shop should we place our products? Who is our customer to begin with? What are their profile? And they found out that they can grow among expat Arab segments in this country. And also not from the richest group of people, maybe the medium SECC kind of group they will have to target. When they zeroed in, they understood what health means to them. They grew their penetration, gained that message, and they achieved significant growth. For example, CRP, consumer reach point growth of 7%, they have achieved in 1 year. So this is not only theory, this is practical, and brands can indeed achieve great growth using this philosophy. So what are my parting remarks? 3 things. Number 1, shoppers and consumers are always evolving. If you think that I've got the healthy customers in my portfolio done, it's never going to be that, because of 2 reasons. One is, obviously, the choices and preferences shift, and you have to really constantly know. And the second thing is, people leave. They flirt with a lot of brands. It's not, loyalty has become a myth, especially in the FMCG sector. Unless you really reconnect, even the biggest brands keep on reconnecting and investing in their brands to stay afloat and grow. Second is, know what are the new segments, new channels, new way of shopping that people are using, and leverage these channels to expand your reach and expand your penetration, household penetration. That's the key. If you take one thing from this message is that you have to increase, you have to keep on doing customer acquisition and increase your penetration, household penetration. Number 3, drive growth by penetration, but also activating the health trends, achieving the health trends by knowing them what that is. Don't just simply say, I'm healthy. That's not going to work. That's all I have. Thank you, everybody. Let's go and create a better future for our food.